What up, Better at Chess Nation? This is day 27 of the 30-day daily chess puzzle challenge. That's right, day 27. We are officially 3 days out from finishing this challenge. Wow. I would like to thank each and every person who tuned in to watch at least one of the videos I've put out over the past month. And probably a month and a half or so. I'll be lying to say that this lasted exactly 30 days because it didn't. I wasn't always consistent when posting the videos. And, this YouTube thing is hard. And just getting to the point where posting videos every day, even videos that are, like this, which are, if I'm being honest, relatively easy for me to make, just shows that, YouTube is a grind. So it's definitely not a sprint. It is definitely a marathon to the fullest. So, but again, enough about me. Let's talk about today's video. So the past 4 days, we're working on pin, forks, and double attacks. So today, we're going to talk about, we'll add mate and one in there, but we definitely want to cover skewer. Yeah, we'll do windmill. Do some X-ray attacks there, and yeah, let's do those. Let's start with those. So, and again, with these last 4 videos, I want to further cover topics that we are going to discuss in my tactics and strategy series coming right after this series. So, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, click the bell notification notification bell so you get notified when I release new content. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so the bishop came from here to take whatever piece was right there. I forget because it moved so quickly. Alrighty, so move this up a little bit. Yeah, let's have it. So, okay, so here's what I see. See, I see this bishop and this queen connected on the same diagonal, which, anytime you have the queen and another piece connected, you have anytime you have 2 attacking pieces connected, you have a battery. So this battery is pretty strong, especially with the queen leading the way. So we got this bishop. This bishop and queen on the same diagonal, and they're both eyeing down this pawn right here, and that pawn is not protected by anything except the king, which means that is a very weak pawn, which means there is at least checking possibilities. But in this case, the king is in a corner with nothing protecting this pawn, so this is actually going to be a checkmate right there. So that's a mate in 1. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so our opponent just took that piece. So, okay. And this is going to be another mate in 1. So for this, so when our opponent moved the knight from here to take that piece, it opened up this file for our rook to take our opponent's rook and deliver a checkmate. And the reason it's a checkmate because no piece is protecting this rook. There's one square between the king and this rook. And that one square is crucial because the king cannot protect any piece one square away. It has to be right next to the piece. Like the king is protecting all 3 of these pawns right here. This king is not protecting this rook. In fact, nothing is protecting that rook. So it was a mistake for our opponent to move this knight off this diagonal. Now the knight was pinned to the rook, and the knight white felt like it had to move the knight, so it did that. So we're going to take the rook and deliver checkmate. Because again, this rook is attacking. This is a back rank checkmate. The king has no way out. The king has no protection. The king can't take this rook. It's checkmate. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, so all right, so the pawn took whatever piece was there. It was probably another pawn. So, okay. This is interesting. We have this bishop here. I mean, this bishop would love to go here. Of course, this knight is blocking that, so that's not going to happen. And, that rook is there, of course, but, we have to worry about that knight here. But the way, okay, so the way this looks like there's potential for a windmill attack here. So the way the windmill works, and this, of course, this would be better visually, but just explain it. The way the windmill works. The windmill is when you have a situation where you can put the king in check with two different pieces. They check the king differently, right? Like you see this bishop right here. It's eyeing down this pawn. And behind that pawn is the king. So this pawn is pinned to the king. So that's why this rook can sit right here and not have to worry about being attacked. So this bishop right here is very well placed. This bishop right here is also eyeing down this file right here. So the king can't really move there. The rook, if it wanted to go up here to maybe add some protection there, it couldn't. So what to do here? Because I'll probably just move that rook there. Let's do that. Okay, and that's it. Simply moving the rook over, lining up the rooks. Again, this rook is very well placed. I don't want to say well placed. This rook is placed. This rook is on a nice outpost of a square. And the reason this is a good square for the rook is because, again, it's right in front of the king. This rook is eyeing, it's on the same file as the king, which is you want your rook to be on open files, and you definitely want your rook to be on files that, again, lined up directly with the king. And then that's when you want to get another piece in there if you have another rook, or if your queen is up here and you have put a rook behind it. That's perfect. You're creating a battery, and you just ready to use that battery as a battering ram against the king. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay. So the king was in check. They decided to move over one. Now, if there was just one rook back here, we can get a back rank checkmate. But we have two. Let's see, with the one rook, we remove the queen up. This rook will take, this rook right here will take that. But we have two rooks here. So, So I think in this case, we're probably just maybe we'll attack the, you know what, actually, no, that's what we will do. We want to attack the queen right here. Because see, we have our two rooks lined up, right? So this queen is in a nice square, right? This square is unoccupied by anything. If we put this rook here, the queen can't just take because it's protected by another rook. So the queen would have to move somewhere. And if the queen moves away from this square, that means this file is opened up for this queen to deliver a checkmate. Our queen to deliver a checkmate. So, White's has a decision to make. Take the rook, which they did to prevent checkmate. So, so they did that. And now White, of course, is going to protect this pawn because otherwise, on our next move, we're going to move the queen there, and that's going to be checkmate. All right, let's keep it going. Okay, and this is an example of the windmill that I was talking about. Well, actually, no. This is actually going to be a maiden one. So, actually, is this a maiden one? Looks like a maiden one. If I just pull back, the king will be stuck in a corner. Can't move anywhere. I mean, I can come back one, but that's probably not the right move. Why isn't that the right move, though? Because the king is in check and can't go there. Oh, because the king can move that up. Right. Okay. That's what it is. So this is a example of the windmill, right? And see, in this instance, we see that the bishop is here. It's lined up on the diagonal that the king is on. So before, I moved the rook down because I'm thinking like, okay, well, you just move the rook out the way. That should be checkmate. But no, there's another step in here before we can deliver checkmate. And that's actually we have to take away this pawn. Once we take away this pawn, if we were to move our rook right here, the only thing that would be able to block a check by the bishop would be this rook, which we can come in and take again. and then that will be checkmate. So the way the windmill attack works is that, again, you have two pieces. They are working together to check the king, one piece after the other. Like in this case, I'm going to move the rook here. The bishop did the checking. Now I'm going to move the rook back. The rook is doing the checking. Then the king is going to go in his corner. Then I'm going to pull the rook back. And then the bishop is going to be doing the checking again. And it's like, again, you're switching with the pieces. But the way it works is that your pieces are moving within the same two squares or so, or same few squares. To one piece is going to deliver a check. The other piece is going to move to a side of the board, whether that's to just gobble up pieces or, just move to a different square where they're not in line with a check. And then once the king moves, the other piece that was moving around is going to come back and deliver a check because it's going to be protected by the other piece that was delivering a check. And I know this sounds complicated, but just looking here, and I'll even show you guys again, just looking at what a windmill is, it's like, okay, there's this back and forth. So I'm going to move the rook here. This bishop's doing the checking. The king's going to have to move here. I can move my rook back here. The king is in check again. The king is forced to go back in his corner. It's just like, that's the windmill technique. That's how it works pretty much. So again, it's this constant back and forth, and you just keep going and going and going. The great thing about the windmill technique is that when you see it and you have opportunity to do it, you can slowly gobble up a lot of your opponent's pieces on the board. Like there's some games where you or the person playing was down a lot of pieces, then they did the windmill technique, and all of a sudden they were up in pieces. I've seen some games where the person actually resigned after seeing that all the pieces got gobbled up. Because what were they supposed to do? Half the board is gone, and by two pieces. So, and that's the great thing about the windmill technique. So, but again, it might be kind of hard to see just from this puzzle, but it's okay. You watch the Tactics and Strategy series, I'm gonna break this down a lot better than maybe I'm doing right now and show you guys, and you will want to put that tool in your toolbox and use it anytime you can. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so that pawn moved up. Let's see. Essentially, white is probably gonna put the bishop here to attack that rook. What we want to do is actually this. We want to put our queen here because that's doing two things. Well, no, it's not really doing two things. It's preparing attack. It's preparing to go here to try to deliver checkmate. Our opponent can, of course, move that up. Then we would, or actually, no. We don't want to do that. We actually want to use this bishop. This bishop is lined up here. We want to get rid of that pawn first. The reason we want to get rid of that pawn first is so that the pawn isn't used against us later. Because see, if I were to just do what I just said, move the queen here, this pawn can move up. And then, you would essentially have to make more moves to get to the conclusion you want to get to. And it's not even a guarantee that you would get there. Whereas moving this bishop first to take this pawn, put the king in check, is going to bring the king out. Then you put your queen up. Put your queen right here on the same row that the king is on. The king is in check. The king has to go back in this corner because where else is the king going to go? Right? The queen's right here. The king can't go on these two squares. Then, once the king is back in his corner, you bring the queen down and deliver checkmate. Okay, they're not going to show that, but essentially that's what it is, right? The king has, okay, actually, no, the king can't even take that. The king is going to have to go back in that corner, or is going to move here. The bishop will come back. And that's going to put the king in check again. Or you might just bring your queen here first, then you decide to move your bishop back on the next move if white hasn't figured out a way to stop that. So there are a lot of different options here, but it's important to get rid of that pawn. See, the king is in check right now, white's king, so the king is going to move there. You can pull this bishop back, put it where it was. That's exposing the rook check behind it. The king would go back here, then you bring your queen here. Now there's no way black or white could stop a checkmate here. What could white do? All white really can do is just move this rook like over so that white, the king could essentially move over next move and maybe come out here. So, white still has some options. It's not game over yet, but it is getting pretty darn close with that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so black decided to move the rook down in front of, attacking this bishop. What are we going to do? We can do that. I think that's a good move. And the reason we would go there instead of here is because this bishop can just take. If we move here, nothing could take. We move this bishop here, nothing can take that bishop. This rook is protecting that bishop, and the king would have nowhere to go. These two pieces are defending each other. This bishop is also covering that square. This pawn is covering that square. This rook is covering that whole file. And once this bishop gets here, the bishop will be putting the king in check, which is the last piece that we need to deliver a checkmate. So we're going to move the bishop there. That's checkmate. All right. Let's do two more here. Okay. So this one, I don't even know what you would call this one. This feels like a bait and switch almost. But here's what happens. In this case, you see this bishop here. It's pinned to the queen, right? So if you move this bishop, depending on where you move the bishop at, your opponent will be attacking your queen. Now, what I see is the bishop is on this diagonal, which happens to be a color that the king is on, which means if this bishop goes here to this square, it's attacking the king. And that also means the king has to defend that attack. Now, once that bishop moves, these queens are attacking each other. And whoever moves their queen first essentially gets the other queen. So we're going to move this bishop here. White has to defend against that attack, which means taking the bishop, which means you get their queen. And, of course, that knight jumped over, took the rook that was right here. You're just going to take the knight back. So, yeah, and you end up getting your opponent's queen. All right, let's do one more here. Okay. Okay, and, this one, let's see here. I'm thinking we can do that. That'll be a check. This bishop would take, then we move the rook over. That's a check. The king would have to go in this corner. Then you deliver a check with the bishop. The king would move right here. Then you take this pawn right here. And the king will have nowhere to go because this bishop is covering that diagonal. And the rook will cover anything on that vertical. So let's do that. Okay, the bishop takes. We're going to take with the rook. Okay, I forget about that move. That's an in-between move there. The bishop, could come in there and block. Is it stopping the attack I just said? No, not at all. It's really it's an extra move. To me, again, the way I would rather play is just like, okay, if the game is essentially set and that move is not really going to change the outcome of the game, I'd rather just end the game than play extra moves that don't need to be played. I get it. It makes you, seem like you are like really and truly defending your territory. But after enough experience and stuff, you just see like certain moves aren't going to change the outcome of the game. Like this game is over. It's just like that's not doing anything. It's just like to me, it just seems like it's no point to it. That's why when I see the game is over, just like, okay, let me just make the move that's going to lead to checkmate because this game is clearly going to checkmate. It can end in 2 moves or it can end in 3 moves. The only reason it ended in 3 moves is because I decided to play extra moves to prolong the game. But there's no point in prolonging the game sometimes. So you can put your bishop here, put the king in check. The king comes to the only square it can come to. Now you can bring the bishop there, and that is checkmate. Reason being is because this bishop now controls this diagonal, which happens to be control the one square the king could go to. And once this bishop moves out the way, this rook is putting the king in check. And because the king has nowhere to go, this is checkmate. All right, one more. Okay, so this is gonna be a mate in one, and so again, you want to make sure you read the board every time you make a move. You always want to see, okay, what changed? What changed? What stayed the same? Where do I now have control of? Where did I lose control of? So this bishop and queen both are eyeing down this pawn right here. So that's the first thing to note. The next thing you want to note is how many defenders does that pawn have? Looking at the board, we see that it only has one defender, the king, which means that pawn is, a weakness. So if that pawn had another defender, then it would be like, okay, I can't really attack that. But you can't attack it because, again, the only defender is the king. When two pieces are attacking one piece, the only piece protecting that piece is the king, that's pretty much a note that you should attack that piece. So in this case, we want to attack with the queen because, again, the queen can deliver a checkmate. The bishop can take the piece and the game will keep going. The queen can attack the piece, take the piece, and deliver checkmate just because it has more attacking power than the bishop. So this is going to be a mate in one. That's checkmate. That's day 27. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you know anybody interested in chess content, no matter what type of chess content it is, share this video with them. Tell them subscribe to the channel. Tell me your thoughts on this video as well as any other video as well as this series. Drop that in the comment section below. I read the comments. I love the feedback. Good, bad, or ugly. Also, if this is the first video you're seeing in this series, or if you're new to the channel, or if you've seen a few videos trying to convince yourself that this is the right channel to subscribe to for the right chess content, do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button now. Also, hit the bell notification so you're notified when I drop more chess content like this, chess lessons, chess games. When this channel drops chess content, I want you to be the first to know. And the best way for you to be the first to know is to not only subscribe to the channel, but hit that bell icon. All right, people, I'm Terrence B. This is day 27. This is Better at Chess. I am signing out. Peace.